We arrived at Lake Toba after a bumpy ride from Brastagi. The lake is 18 miles wide and 60 long, making it the largest crater lake in Southeast Asia. We hadn't any idea of what the lake was like until we arrived. The area was lush and beautiful. It was hard to believe there was once a massive volcano here. It had erupted 75,000 years ago. Its volume, estimated at 2,800 cubic kilometers, made it the largest eruption on Earth in the past 2 million years. Ashfall from it covered an area approximately half the size of the continental United States. The facts were as amazing as its beauty. Our second day here was a Sunday, and after discovering a morning market, we decided to attend Mass. Afterwards, we walked the 7 kilometers back to our accommodation. We got a kick out of meeting these boys who were playing with their pet beetles. We'd seen kids with them before, sometimes tethered to a stick. Children had these winged beetles flying above their heads in orbit. That didn't seem to be enough entertainment for these guys. They were intent on showing us a wrestling match. Only their pets wouldn't cooperate. But back down the road we walked, and a long road it was. We passed through fields of maturing grain, noticing how defenses had been arranged to discourage hungry birds from getting an easy meal. It was interesting to see their ingenuity and try to figure out how it worked. The scarecrows were a nice touch. While here, Siobhan and I decided to rent a motorbike and do a circuit of Samosir Island. When we started out, the roads were rough and strewn with potholes. Then, as we ascended the hills and hairpin turns, it changed to dirt and chunky gravel. For a moment, we thought of turning back, but it seemed safer to continue on. It was nice when the road resumed being rough asphalt with scattered potholes. The beautiful vistas helped make steady progress difficult as well. Eventually, we concluded there'd have to be fewer stops or we'd never get back before dark. When we got around to the far side of the island, we started to encounter a number of precarious bridges. If they weren't missing cross members, they were missing running boards. I'd never been across such exciting bridges. After stopping for lunch, Siobhan asked directions for us. The fields here were patrolled as well, and I think the birds had more than met their match with this lady. After 130 kilometers, we peeled our butts off that motorbike. We arrived back at our place, the Teresa guest house, as dusk was falling, and the evening showers advanced. It had been a beautiful day. Next morning, I set off on a hike to the top of the ridge that ran along the coast on our side of Samosir Island. The going was steep at times, but the view and the abundant wildflowers kept me distracted. At the top, things leveled out, and I found I was in a logging area. I thought the forest looked a bit too orderly. I did find a sort of cafe frequented by loggers, and had a coffee and a chat with the guy before realizing the time. I had to get back. Siobhan and I were catching the evening ferry back to Parapat. We were spending the night there so we could catch the early bus to Bukittinggi. I was running late as usual, and I kept stopping to get shots of the numerous flowers along the way. Our bus departed the next morning at 7 a.m. A few hours on the road and the driver pulled over at this rest stop for a coffee and a wash. Feeling restless, we explored out back to find the source of the baths. The spring was small, but had been channeled for a purpose. It was interesting how over time the minerals had coated everything they'd come in contact with. I especially liked the way the spring water arrived in the bathhouse. Now I wished I hadn't bathed the night before. Our bus drove on for hours, eventually stopping in Banjul. This would mark our passing from the northern hemisphere into the southern. Once off the bus, t-shirt vendors eager to make a sale mobbed us. I noticed this old fellow seemed to enjoy all the commotion. I'd bet he'd seen this scene unfold many times before. Saying goodbye to the north, we welcomed the southern hemisphere and carried on our way. Bukittinggi is a small city with friendly people, and it turned out to be a good base to explore other places from. We wandered the town and found good views at an overlook above a canyon on its outskirts. A few Muslim schoolboys seemed to be enjoying it as well. School kids must be out on the garden. Hello! They epitomized the Sumatran people, always friendly and in a good humor. While out walking one day, we hoped to see some of the large bats referred to as flying foxes. This local kid offered to show us where they usually were during the day. While wandering, we met Ramses, a Dutchman, and Christophe, a Frenchman, who were also trying to get a look at the bats. Unfortunately for us, none seemed to be around. Then the kid said that during the monsoon season, they generally go up to the higher elevations. So we found other things to occupy our curiosity. Our main reason for stopping in Bukittinggi was to see a bullfight. Marina and Jason, our English friends whom we'd met in India, first told us of the spectacle. After telling the bus driver where we wanted to go, in time he led us out on the side of the road and pointed a finger. These other guys, who'd also gotten off the bus, then motioned us to follow them. We soon found ourselves passing through a lady's backyard. Down the road out front and around the next corner, we found the arena. I wandered through the crowd, and Siobhan found a safer spot up on the road next to the grandstand. The event was exciting, and it brought out a large and varied crowd. The bulls were carefully looked over and studied. After a bit of discussion, wagers were made. Funny, these ducks, foraging amongst all these people, didn't seem bothered at all by the commotion. I found this a terrific opportunity to people watch, and I got wrapped up in the excitement of the event. When I came upon the peanut vendor, everything seemed complete. Shortly, the bulls squared off and eyed each other. Now, a Sumatran bullfight is nothing like a Spanish or Mexican bullfight, in that there's no matador and no killing. One beast is simply pitted against the other in a shoving match until one gives in and turns tail. Being egged on by their owners and the ring of spectators, I felt bad for the combatants. I'm sure they didn't appreciate getting goosed by those guys to make them fight. I also found myself questioning the humaneness of the event. But right or wrong, it wasn't for me to judge. And to let the truth be known, I was really getting wrapped up in it. The battle must have gone on for some 20 minutes or more, the crowd wisely giving plenty of space to the bulls, rather quickly at times, myself included. So around they went, and then, all of a sudden, things came to a climax, and it was over quite quickly. The loser exiting the pitch and running down the street, with children in hot pursuit. And Siobhan thought she'd be safer up there. After I checked and found her all right, another pair of water buffalo were led in, and the betting and action resumed. This battle of strength and will went much like the first, though this time the loser ran off into an adjoining field. The bookmakers settled up with the winners as everyone ready to go home. Except the winning bull wasn't quite so ready, and this lady had boiled eggs to sell. After a few more days in Bukitingi, Siobhan and I went to nearby Lake Mananjau. We found it as others had told us, a crater lake smaller than Toba, but just as grand in scenery and less spoiled by commercialism. Here we had a terrific little room with a deck over the water. Between showers, we'd take leisurely strolls down quiet roads. But more often than not, we watched the storms advance across the lake, and we read. While on Lake Mananjau, the monsoon season finally seemed to catch up with us. Our entire trip was during the wet season across Central and Southeast Asia. We'd had rain now and again, but not as regular as we were now experiencing. It was wonderful to watch. While out on our walks, we enjoyed the surroundings and came across the most curious things, like this moth. It was massive. Hoping we'd escape the monsoon rains, we decided to leave Lake Mananjau, bound next for the island of Java. Our destination, Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia and its most populated city. With a day and a half's journey ahead of us, we settled in, as did everyone else. Being the only Westerners on the bus, Siobhan and I attracted some curiosity. Eventually our bus met the ferry in Bakauheni, and we crossed the Sunda Straits to Java, arriving in Jakarta later that evening. We were sorry to be leaving Sumatra. It had been fantastic. We'd seen so much, yet felt only its surface had been scratched. There was so much more to see. Finding the bustle of Jakarta not to our liking, we went out to the docks in calmer surroundings. The old Dutch port of Sunda Kelapa. These are Buginese Makassar schooners. Of an old design, these vessels carry out a good portion of Indonesia's inter-island transport. The docks were a hive of activity, and there was a quiet rhythm to the goings-on. All along the docks, laborers loaded and unloaded cargoes, repair work was carried out, and the crews relaxed. Siobhan's father had been a merchant seaman, and had fired an interest of ships in the both of us. I wondered where these boats had come from, and where they were bound for next. The next day we escaped the fumes of Jakarta in the neighboring city of Bogor. Having an interest in horticulture, I wanted to see the Kebun Raya Botanical Gardens. Founded by Sir Stanford Raffles in 1817 during the British occupation of Indonesia, Kebun Raya contains a huge variety of tropical plants. Its long avenues and extensive gardens invited aimless wandering. Because of its age, Kebun Raya has a spectacular collection of wonderfully established vegetation. There was also this colony of bats high in the trees which drew our attention. I never tired of seeing these communal animals, especially when in such large numbers. We left Jakarta the next morning on the 7 o'clock train, bound for Yogyakarta, 8 hours away. The fun thing about trains in Indonesia is that because of the heat, doors are left open for maximum ventilation. Parents kept a close eye on their children, so it seemed the only people at risk were dummies like me, holding on and hanging out the door. Siobhan and I enjoy train travel because by rail you see a side of the country and its people that you don't see from the road. It's relaxing too. Siobhan tends to relax quite easily. At a stop around lunchtime, 15 to 20 food vendors boarded the train. You can get anything from drinks and sweets to steaming corn on the cob or fried rice. After canvassing the train in rapid succession, they soon departed. This straggler made a fine exit and smoothly moved on himself. We continued on, the entire time passing through tranquil countryside and beautiful terraced rice paddies. I tried to read, but couldn't, finding the passing scenery infinitely more interesting. Yogyakarta, our destination, would arrive too soon. This was one of those times when you wish the journey would last a little while longer. We found Yogyakarta to be a much nicer place than Jakarta. Everyone we met was friendly and relaxed. We felt at ease and explored it at length, sometimes getting a lift in one of the many becaks or bicycle rickshaws. We ended up in the Pasar Nasan bird market, where many varieties of fowl are for sale. Indonesians prize birds for both their beauty and as bringing good fortune. There was plenty going on to occupy your attention here. The pigeon training between father and son was fun to watch. That seemed to be some kind of tough food. Near Yogyakarta is one of the greatest Buddhist monuments in Southeast Asia, Borobudur. Constructed in the 9th century, it was rediscovered in 1814 under a thick layer of ash from nearby Mount Merapi, a still active volcano. Constructed atop a hill, the monument consists of 9 levels. We began walking around each tier in a clockwise direction, which is customary for Buddhist monuments. Each are adorned with carved panels depicting Buddhist teachings and stories and Javanese life from 1,000 years ago. There are well over 1,400 panels in all. It was hard to know if I was more in awe of its size or its intricate beauty. Nearly 500 statues of Buddha sit in meditative states upon its tiers, some in the open, some hidden within bell-shaped stupas. All staring out over the surrounding landscape. After ascending its various levels in the unwavering sun, we'd gained our objective. By the time you get to the top, you've actually walked a total of 5 kilometers. It was remarkable to visit, and someplace we'll never forget.